Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Soraya. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Doing all right. Are you still following the stay-home order?
That I am. And
Good.
I'm even using a mask inside my house. So,
Yeah,
no, I'm not, but wouldn't that be funny?
that would be funny. So today we're finally getting around to a show that we've been wanting to get to almost from the beginning. So
Right.
we've been wanting to talk about David Roback, who was one of the original founding members of Rain Parade. And unfortunately, we lost David in February. I think around February 25th, I believe, of this year. And we decided that we wanted to celebrate his life, right? And
Yes.
have it and walk through some of the his musical contributions that we like and that we're fans of. And we decided that we would like to have somebody else help us talk about David Roback, right?
Absolutely. Who is that one person?
So we decided to reach out to Matt Piucci, who, with David, started the Rain Parade,
Mm-hmm.
or Rain Parade. I said the Rain Parade. That started Rain Parade, and I think we should give him a call and have him let us know. I have mixed feelings about this, so I'm excited to learn more about David Roback, but it's tough too because it's so fresh that
Yeah.
we lost him. So I have mixed feelings about this, but let's give him a call and see what Matt has to say, what he remembers, see if he has any stories to share.
Sounds good. Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff,
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a gruviar.
Let's get groovy. All right, calling Matt Piucci.
Greetings.
Greetings, Matt. How are you doing today?
Fine. Normally, Temecula, California, that would be a questionable pickup if I didn't know it was you.
Yeah. Sometimes I get that response from people.
There's something like call centery about such a name.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm not sure I've ever been there. It's a great name.
Yeah. It's a great little town. We like it. We like it. So we had joked about doing this conversation in Farsi when you started responding to some of our requests. I was going to learn a couple phrases, but I failed to do that.
I just use Google Translate. I don't know. When you put me on the spot. Fortunately, across the hall is one of my colleagues who's Iranian, and he told me how to say it, and I've since forgotten.
Yeah.
Shamat, something or other. Anyway. So we'll go English if that's okay with you.
Yes, please. Let's do English. So this way, Soraya won't be the only one understanding what's happening here.
No, I wouldn't be understanding the Farsi that well. I'd have you repeat things 3-4 times, but it's all good. It's all good. English, we go.
English it is.
Are you guys okay? First of all, you guys okay?
Yeah, so both of us, we were just talking about the fact that we have both been isolating ourselves at home, using masks if we need to go outside, but both Soraya and myself, us and our family and friends have been safe, abiding by all of the recommendations, making sure that we're staying at home as much as possible. I don't think I've left the house for at least 7 or 8 days, other than to take out take out the trash, get the mail. That's about it.
You can go for a walk. That's good for you.
Yeah. If
you should do that.
Yeah, so we're pretty.
But don't go near anybody.
Yeah.
Where you live. If you live like in the downtown, maybe you can't do that.
Yes.
I don't know where you live.
So we live in a very small gated community. I think there's 32 homes that are in this little tiny community that we're in, And so if we do see somebody, it's usually at the other end of the block. What about you, Soraya? Have you gotten out to get any walks?
Yeah, I make it a point to go out and take a walk, and I see all my other neighbors, and we all kind of zigzag across the street to stay away from one another. So
Yep.
it's actually pretty good.
How about you, Matt?
Same deal. We
Yeah.
walk 3 times a day. It's funny for Stephanie, it's not really that different than her regular world. Except we don't have doggies because no one's going anywhere and they don't need to put them here. That's my wife, boys dogs, I'm sorry. And that is my wife, I guess I should be clear. Context, as my son says. Anyway, so we're doing fine. He's here as well. My son is here. We're all cooking and made 1 or 2 huge runs to the store. And then, let's see, the other times, it was Stoneman's birthday yesterday. Nick was appalled that we let him in, but we made him sit on one side of the table.
Oh.
And we watched some cool movie about Leon Russell by Les Blanc, which, yes, we enjoyed. So that's our story. We haven't really played with Hanley once and Hanley and Feldman once, and that's it.
Yeah, we did see the post that you posted on the porch or patio, I guess, of you guys jamming, and you guys were, I think you had using equipment that had been wiped down, cleaned, and you guys were definitely at least
I
6
did.
feet apart.
I did on that porch, built by Stefan Hunka, I might add.
Wow.
Oh, see?
Oh yeah, he built a ton of shit at my house. He's a big time contractor actually now. He does very well supervising gigantic projects.
Wow.
You wouldn't know that anyway, but I digress. Yes, we've it's been great actually. I don't mind this at all. Texting lyrics back and forth to Steven, that's about the extent of continued songwriting. I kind of wish we could do it, but
That's an interesting process, though, texting song lyrics. But I guess, when you can't be in the same room, it's as good as it gets for now, I guess.
it's actually better.
Yeah?
Because then you can send a little bit, and then you get a bit back, and then if and when it works. You know what? Every which way that works is good. So
Yes.
doing it anyway is good because that means you're doing it.
Exactly. And Jeff, that tells us more songs are coming.
Yes.
So, win-win.
We got a bunch. I was going to suggest that we go down to LA, and especially after David died, just as a pick-me-up to Steven, and we were going to do it, and I talked to my buddy Rob Campanella, who used to be in Brian Jones' South Massacre, and Mr. Fern. He's got a place on Burbank, almost at the top of the hill, one of them streets that goes past the cemetery. What the hell is that? There's a mortuary at Forest Lawn.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go up the hill, and then over on the other side you're in Hollywood. Anyway,
Yeah.
he's got a place there in the studio, and Jim said he'd do it, so I wanted to go down there and knock a couple out. But we're not going anywhere, are we now?
No, we're not.
So we'll see. So we might do that pretty soon.
Okay. All right.
Get the old ball rolling. Thursday. I don't want to say how many. There's a bunch.
A bunch. I like that. I like hearing them.
We probably got 8 right now that we could go do, but I don't want to do that. We've got a lot of stuff to do yet.
Okay.
But that actually exist in a form that everybody knows and could play if they had to. Well, it's still tweaking. We take forever. At least I do. Now. Anyway, that isn't why you called me, is it?
Well, no. Well, we wanted to reach out to you and ask you a few questions about David Roback and talk about David Roback a little bit. For our listeners that maybe don't know, how did you and David meet?
Yes, we both arrived at a small town in Minnesota, Northfield, Minnesota, at Carleton College. Probably 1,600 students in September of 1975, and we were each assigned roommates unbeknownst to one another. And it became abundantly clear to both of our roommates separately, and then I think aggregately, that this wasn't working out because David and I didn't share their lifestyle views, and they were trying to study and things like that. So the school suggested that we switch, and we did. I went over this place and met him. It's cool. Had all the cool shit there. Jimi Hendrix posters, American flag, Doors. I'm like, all right, great. So we were roommates in college. We were both 17, I think, and that's how we met. Lived together for a year.
And then am I correct that he moved back to Los Angeles, and then at some point you came out to move to the West Coast as well?
Boy, I hope I don't mess this chronology up, but he dropped out of pretty much everybody I know who went to Carleton dropped out at one point or another. Who played music, that is. That includes Stoneman and even Raymond Berg, who did eventually graduate. Those are people who have Raymond Berg, very obscure guy who played on one Rain Parade tour, but was in a band with me and John. Anyway, I think he went to New York first.
Okay.
That was the deal. He spent the summer in New York, and I guess that would have been the summer of 1976. He came back to school and was freaked out, and because he was there and saw all that shit, and school was over by then, even though it may have taken a while. Maybe it was our sophomore year. I can't remember exactly, but he did not go back to school. I don't think he did more than 2 years there. Spent some time in New York. Went to Berkeley, and then eventually back to Los Angeles. And I can't tell you between 76 and 81 exactly what order those things happened for him. But he did go back to New York, and that obviously things that were going on there kind of changed everything for us who were into music.
Okay, but so then Rain Parade started to form when you came out to the West Coast then, right?
Yes, it's like almost exactly 39 years ago.
Wow.
Like a few days ago. It was right after Reagan got shot.
Oh, wow.
Maybe the Pope got shot first. There was a couple good shootings then.
Oh.
Good. Excuse me. Big, whatever. Assassination attempts that both failed. That was so. Yes, and I'd spoken to him a lot, and he'd gone back and forth. He was in New York. He was in L.A. Went to Cal, and he eventually graduated from Cal, from Berkeley, which I did much later, and Sue did as well. Go Cal, go Bears, very strong in the Paisley Underground. Ella Steven too, so that's 4, not bad. Right, Sue, David, Steven, and me, right. At any rate, I did correspond with him and talk to him a lot. I guess that maybe there were 3 years. I guess I would have to account for when we were separated, maybe 2.5, until I finally moved out there after, deciding we were going to do something. We had a band in college before he left, so maybe he was there a couple of years. That's got to be it. He must have stayed 2 years, and then maybe it was in the 3rd year.
We wanted to ask about some specific songs, if you recall how they came together. So on the debut album, Emergency Third Rail Power Trip, there's a few songs that are co-writes that you and David wrote. One of them is the lead-off track, Talking in My Sleep. Do you remember how that song came together?
Sure. Somewhere there's 4 tracks of that stuff. I'm sure David has it somewhere, and Now, no one will ever find it. I don't know where it is, but that was a guitar riff that I had, and then was pretty much the whole thing that you hear. I figured out that whole thing, and then a couple other chords, and then I wrote a verse, and that was it. And I sung it today, and we recorded kind of the music, and then, that was it. And then sometime, not too much later, he goes, "Hey man, I finished that song." And I'm like, "Great." So he had written more lyrics for the verse, and then there's that the part where it kind of stops, which is cool. We did that a lot. It's kind of like What She's Done to Your Mind. I've written this verse, although that I had the whole verse and multiple verses, and he came up with this other complete section, and then they were melded together. This one was a riff, and which is the song, and then a verse, but nothing more, and just the very first few lines that he sings. And he wrote some really good lyrics, I thought, and expanded it into much more of a song. So that's how that worked. Couldn't tell you how much time passed where we sat on what we had until he came up with it. But yeah, so there you go. That's that one. And that would be, 80? That one actually came a little bit later. That was because that one was on Emergency, and that was the only one that we hadn't, one of the few that we hadn't recorded at all. So it came a little bit later. So maybe that's an 82-ish to 3-ish song.
And then What She's Done to Your Mind, that one was one that you had, you said the verses came pretty fast and quick, and that was one that had been played quite a bit?
No, that one, that was different. What She's Done to Your Mind is earlier, and was one of the first songs. I remember sitting in the park, it was Thanksgiving, and I'd gone back to my parents' house. And I'd been out in LA for, it's got to be 1981 then, so Thanksgiving of 81. And without going into too much detail, we'd gone to see the Colors, David and I, and who became the Bangles, and they were fantastic. So those events inspired me to write this thing. I was basically I started with Rain, and I'm like, how do I do this without having it sound too much like it? And then, so trying to sound like the Beatles, it ended up more like the Byrds, and I had this thing, and I played it for David, and he's like, "Oh man, that's great." And then I think almost immediately he came up with that other section, and then that guitar part too, which is really an essential part of the song that he came up with, the 12-string part. So yeah, here I had this verse, it's solid, and then a good chorus to it, the first chorus or whatever it is, the What She's Done to Your Mind thing, I guess is a verse and the chorus, because the verse ends with the chorus, whatever. Whatever that is, I had that, but I love the contrasts of what he came up with, both musically and lyrically. So yeah, that was good. His contributions were really important, and it was a great collaboration.
And then you've mentioned that the song is about Sue Huffs, right?
She's on the cover.
Yep. Okay. So can we talk about...
Let's just say inspired. She was part of the experience.
Understood.
Anyway,
Very good. So can we talk about Look at Mary? So that was a song that you wrote with David and Steven. Is that correct?
yeah, let's see. That one was a weird smorgasbord that we just kept adding more stuff to. It kind of like grew like a snowball. I think Steven had that kind of. David ended up playing it on that watery 12-string guitar, the descending pattern. Steven might have had that first. I don't honestly remember. And then I wrote a bunch of lyrics and came up with another section. What the hell did David do? Shit, I forgot. I'm sorry. Maybe he came. I remember that one was a real collaboration. The second section I know I wrote, and then kind of, oh boy. That was when we were set up in their parents' living room. Their parents were on vacation, which was pretty awesome. That house isn't even there anymore.
Oh, wow.
The Robacks moved to the valley, and somebody bought that place just for the property. And it was a nice house, man. We just knocked it down for some God knows what. But they had a nice big living room with a stone fireplace, and we were all spread out. And that one came together fairly quickly. I think there's a 4-track of it somewhere. I'm not sure where. So I'm a little fuzzier on who did what on that song.
Okay.
So that was a collaboration. I think the Look at Mary part, I must have come up with that. Otherwise, why would I have songwriting credits for it?
Look at Mary, she goes round and round. That's just life. It's down, it's up, it's on, it's off, but it won't stop for me. Will it stop for you?
I think the Roback brothers wrote the original music, and I know I wrote another Oh Christ, I don't remember. That was a collaboration. I think I don't remember. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Ask Steven. Steven would remember better. I'll have to hit him up about that. Tell you what, I'll get back to you.
Can you tell us anything about some songs that David Roback has sole credit for? I Look Around or Carolyn's song. Do you remember him bringing those to the band?
I do. We rented a house from Sue Hoff's grandfather, Rabbi Hoff's, who got it. Different story, but, he's a civil rights guy. But they had a house in Santa Monica, everybody lived there, and David came over and he said, hey, I got this thing. And I think what he had was just kind of the verse with the intro. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Wait a second, man. And pretty quickly grabbed the guitar, and he was very excited because it just came pretty quickly. I mean, I was sort of messing around with something that was remotely similar anyway, or trying to figure out something in my head to do like that. And so I played it, and then he kind of freaked, actually. It's great. He was very happy. And then he came up with the other thing where it goes to the minor chord and then the backwards guitar. And then I'm pretty sure we stole that bass line from Plastic Land.
Oh.
What the hell's the name of the song? It's called Color Appreciation. Or inspired by, or maybe blatantly stolen from. You have to check it out for yourself and tell me whether the steal was that blatant.
Okay.
But
Tell me once again that you're not proud, that you made me cry out loud, cry out loud. Make me sense. That's what I like to do. Make it parallel outside my memory and don't fast. That's what I like to do. So I take a different color for the bridge long overdue.
yeah, that's I like that song. It's got a very weird perspective, very David perspective. So yeah, he wrote that. The song itself, he wrote all of it.
And then we were curious about the song 1 hour, 1/2 ago. And do you recall him bringing that to the band?
No, see, that's what happened with a couple of songs. Like speaking of, I'll bring up Talking in My Sleep because they're sort of analogs and related. So Stephen had he had the "What's the point of looking back on?"
What's the point of looking back? All you see is an empty track of lives you lived, things you tried to deny.
He had that bit. He had that bit, right? Maybe some other stuff, but not the whole song. And then I had this thing, Talking in My Sleep, and I sang the song, right? Well, what was the 4 lines of the song that I had? And then we maybe recorded it on a 4-track. And then one day David comes to wherever we were practicing, he goes, "Maybe I finished those 2 songs." So it wasn't one of them, and he did both of them the same day. So he wrote all the rest of I Look Around, and then most of the rest of Hour and a Half Ago, and then some of the weird stuff that happens in it. I think we sort of worked on the arrangement later, like the idea to slow it down and have that riff. And at that, we didn't really care at that point because we'd all agreed that we split half the songwriting money if there ever was any. So it was a smart move. It made it a lot easier, at least for a while. So yeah, those are 2 songs that he basically moved to the next level. Mm-hmm. And then they really flowered and became songs. Yeah, those are I can't remember exactly how much of an hour and a half Stephen had. But the way the chords move chromatically, and then not chromatically, but what's the word for it? When it moves in a whole tone scale, or it's just a full step every time. Never mind. That kind of weird Sid Barrett stuff. That's David for sure.
Oh wow.
And I think he came up with that at the beginning. Man. Well, which has the weird severity thing where it drops down a half step at the end. And then again, which is really trippy and I love. And I'm pretty sure that's him. Sorry, Stephen, if I'm wrong, you have to verify, but I think that's correct.
Wow, that's very cool. That whole songwriting process with you three sounds really interesting. Are there any stories that you feel are worth sharing about David?
Oh, funny moments about David?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember, I won't name the person who had played with us, and after the rehearsal just kind of looked at us, I'm not going to play in this, post-punk art rock band. And David kind of looks at him and smiles and goes, you know what? You're right. You're not. See you later. Or something like that.
Wow.
Kind of. I think I just guffawed and like, yeah, fuck you. I mean, he's got to do a lot for me personally. I really I wouldn't have met anybody in Los Angeles, including my wife, if not for the kindness of, we were strangers. The Robacks were strangers to me until they weren't. But they were very, very sweet. And I lived there, and they were very supportive. All these people I met, I never would have met them if not for that initial year or whatever it was. Or actually, it was more like 2 years before David. From the time I showed up, not quite 2 years. So, gosh, I guess that doesn't get a lot done now that I think about it. So almost 2 years of real support, and then not that it wasn't support after that. We just went our separate ways. It's not really not support. But anyway,
yes.
I digress.
So going separate ways. So when he left the band, was that mutual? It sounded like he wanted to do some different things. Was it due to the fact that he had different ideas?
Well, it's just so difficult to have three songwriters in a band. I mean, it's kind of like a surprise. I wrote for the sports analogy, but fortunately I don't have one. We always knew that the band was going to be me and Steven, me and David, and my brother is a good musician, let's check him out, okay? But I didn't know that Steven was going to end up being the best songwriter of the three of us.
Wow.
I didn't know that. David didn't know that. And that is great for the universe and me and everybody, but it's really hard to have three songwriters in the band. So I just think that that's the ultimate explanation. There were some, what's the word? I mean, there were some circumstances that facilitated making that easier with some stressful things that were happening. Drive 8 people in one van with no money and across the country, never having done it. And it gets better once you do it. We got better at touring, but we've never done it before. So, and then back to what Jeff was saying, yes, he did have plans. I'm pretty sure, I can't confirm this, that he already knew he had gigs in New York lined up. I don't remember telling us about for play Allison. But I went to that pyramid. I think I did the sound, if I'm not mistaken, to the Pyramid Club when he and Kendra played, and they were amazing. It was great. I guess I sort of knew, at least if I hadn't put 2 and 2 together. Then some weird shit happened, and so we did a few more gigs, and that was it. But I think ultimately it was just not going to be possible. He wanted to do a thing that he was completely in charge of.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a little strong. I can't say that for sure. It was just, I can imagine, too difficult for him to, I don't know, maybe. I can't tell you, I'm not him, but he wanted to do other things, and I think that it was just circumstances pushed that forward, and then we were separated, and then we weren't. I kind of talked about it a couple other times, but I mean, I fantasized that we could be in an airplane and have Tanner join the band, but I think that lasted maybe 2 conversations. That wasn't going to happen. It's a cool idea, though. Actually, it began, but it was just too much, too many cooks.
Right, yeah.
Skinner and I were writing a lot more. David was writing with Kendra. He'd already worked with other people doing Mary Day. I'd already worked with Queen and Bread. It was just a lot of stuff was going on, and he went on to do some really cool stuff immediately. So, I mean, obviously he had moved that way. He hadn't really. The last time he did, which was I think Saturdays at Silent, he was barely on it. I think he played an acoustic guitar at the end. But that was sort of the way things were moving. He had other interests, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, no.
It was a little messy because it was his brother, and we were such good friends, and it was the same band name, and who knows, maybe we should change her name, I don't know. But we didn't, and he went on to do some really cool stuff after that, especially Opal, which I really, really liked that one Opal record.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about some of that, but before we moved into that, we had one more question about a Rain Parade track, and that's what I think of as the ultimate Rain Parade track, and that's No Easy Way Down. David has a co-writing credit on that. How did No Easy Way Down come together?
That one's a little more complicated. That was and again, God, I wish I had that 4-track because all this stuff is on it, and that's like a cassette up, the little studio above the Spanish garage. That was sort of our spaceship for a while. Well, I had all that bit doing, changing the key of the Doors tune a little bit and messing with it. And I mean, I had it. I did not have a chorus, which is the whole verse of before you get to the part that's No Easy Way Down, right?
They come and told me this evening that all I know is inside out. I can't believe it. Love holds 1,000 girls. Each spirit burned before a word.
And I showed it to him, and we were on the road. Actually, that first tour, he goes, "I got it, No Easy Way Down." I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "No Easy Way Down." I mean, I didn't know that he lifted it from Dusty Springfield, but I'm like, okay, cool. So,
'Cause there is no easy way down.
and then we did it. I think we did it once.
My apologies. I don't understand.
Oh, Siri's talking to me.
Siri wants in on this discussion.
No, it's my fucking evil television listening to me. I think that's it. Anyway, so with these really weird, bizarre, kind of religious lyrics that didn't kind of make a lot of sense. But he did come up with that No Easy Way Down part. And then, like 2, 3 days later, we split. So then me and Steven rewrote all the lyrics. We didn't rewrite them. We started with what I had already started with because he changed those. And then we kind of went back to what those were. And then me and Steven finished the lyrics. And then we had the whole thing. We added a bunch of stuff. Then, so that was his chorus on top of the, the snake charmer thing, whatever the hell you want to call that, with the verses and I'm pretty sure when we did it, the one time we did it, that's all we did, just the twangy stuff, nothing else. Which is kind of like what Mazzy started with it being, like the droney thing, and it kind of never changes. It's just that, which is cool, but that's kind of what it was. And I think there's a version of him doing it somewhere. Then, we got off the road and really kind of souped it up. I thought we got a producer, that's Jim. We started working on it a little harder, and we, made all the little bells and whistles that it had. And then Willie just showed up one day, babbling about Miles Davis, and we were listening to some stuff, and I'm like, we should do this. And then I started playing chords on keyboard, and I finally figured out a whole keyboard part. And then I went to Willie, and I showed him, and he's like, okay, let's do strings. And then he wrote it out. So we kind of showed him some of the stuff I had on the keyboards. And then he put that into like a violin. I sound like a moron, that thing they do when they write. So, which I have, by the way. I have that actual original Will Glenn, Let Me See Way Down score.
What?
And then we decided to put cellos and a bass on the bottom. So we had that. So we left room for it at the end. And then, I think it would be a splice. I'd have to ask Jim. And then we got a bunch of kids from Cal State Northridge to come to the studio. And then they played that. Anyway, that's not talking about David. That's what we do.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So
we fired one of them. I realized this is still not about David, but this is a funny thing about Will. We'd written some pretty freaky parts, and this one kid, she's like, "This is wrong. I'm not going to play that." And then I don't know. It's an echo from the other story. Willie goes, "Okay, you're not. See ya." And then he ended up playing all the violins.
Wow.
Oh.
And then a cellist, I think, a violist and a cellist and a double bass player. They played all that stuff, and then I think Willie just tracked them all. Yeah, that's right. Willie plays the 3 violins on there, if I'm not mistaken, yes.
Wow.
And a historic echo of the incident from a few years before when David fired the gun.
That's hilarious. So, Matt, I had a question about an Opal track, or what's listed as an Opal track. Recently, I got an unofficial release album by what's credited as Opal Early Recordings Volume 2, and there's a song called What You've Done on there. My understanding is that could be a Rain Parade track?
Yeah, could be. That, in fact, is a Rain Parade track. It's a Stevens song that David wrote lyrics to. Very similar to the sort of like Norwegian witty guitar parts. Stephen had that. You don't even know what you've done. And he had that too, Stephen, right? And David wrote some more lyrics. Forgot what I did. I don't know, helped him arrange it, maybe wrote a few more chords. It's not my song though. It's Stevens and then David's. But yes, it's a Rain Parade song, and that's an older song, and that recording is from the same set of recordings that we did, I think, right before we did the Wharf Rat Tail stuff.
Oh,
That would
okay.
be in between our single and the Wharf Rat Tail, so this would be like 1982. Yeah, that's an old song. That's like one of the very first Green Parade songs. Not quite sure how that ended up on something called Opal.
Yeah.
So David was the only one who had that recording that I knew of. I mean, I have it now too. I have a mix. I don't have to. So it is alleged that there was a tape that was stolen, and that is a bootleg.
Oh.
So I don't know.
Right.
Okay.
But yes, that is most assuredly a Rampart song. A Stephen Roback song, Stephen and David Roback song, but it's certainly a Stephen Roback song first. And yes, I do play on it. I remember well. I like that song a lot. I'm not really sure why we never did it, to be honest with you, on our record, but we never did it. So there. So actually, that should be an outtake on the release of Emergency Third Rail Power Trip, is what that should be. But it's not. That probably would fit right, between the single and every other song we did. Shit, that might even be older than the single. Now that I think. That's a really early Stephen song. I remember it from, that summer when I first met it. Well, yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that's what's up with that song.
Oh, okay.
All right. So you did mention previously that you did see Clay Allison live, and we were really curious about your thoughts or opinions on that work. Clay Allison, Mazzy Star, Opal, because I think everybody kind of takes a look at, certain tracks sound similar, like what you just mentioned about what you've done. It definitely is a Rain Parade song, and, it's an early Rain Parade song. But then his sound just keeps evolving. And we were just curious if you had any thoughts or opinions that you wanted to share about some of the other projects that David worked on.
Well, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of really great music. He and Kendra played that. I went to the Pyramid with them and watched them play their first show. I don't know whether they called, this is in the Pyramid in New York City in late November or early December of 1980. Anyway, and we were in New York City then. And there were 2 more gigs on the Rain Parade tour, and there was this gig in New York City. So I'm pretty sure they set up in advance and didn't tell anybody. But it was cool. I went and did their sound, and they were great. I thought it was fantastic. It was definitely folkier than what we were doing. Or on that, not folkier than what we were doing, but on that folkier end of the stuff that we were doing. It wasn't like something really totally different than what Rain Parade was doing. I'm not saying it wasn't new. I'm saying it was, it made sense.
Right.
And they were good. It was really cool. And then I'm not really sure of the chronology. And that was a really positive experience for me. So I thought they were wonderful. And could see that was going to be a cool thing. Which is why I mean, why it didn't seem that weird later. Oh my God. It seems like, okay. That makes sense. And then, my gosh, they played with, I think, Juan Gomez played with them, and Keith Mitchell, and maybe even Sylvia Juncosa. And I'm not sure how the whole Clay Allison morphs into Mitchell, Smith, Roback to, out of Clay Allison into Opal, into Mazzy Star. I don't have that whole thing down.
Right.
But there's another really great. What's the thing? I guess it's the first. So they got Happy Nightmare Baby, right? But did David sing on that? Is the song Lullaby on that record, or did that come earlier?
That came earlier.
It's one of the few songs David sings. It's absolutely gorgeous.
We're leaving. Carry all you want to.
on it. It's kind of too bad it's too bad he didn't sing more, because he could. It's funny, in late part, he kind of wanted to sing more, and then he ended up not singing more, so that's a little ironic.
Interesting.
But so I love that song, and that's a different album from Happy Nightmare Baby. So yeah, those are two killer records. Those two, I like. I mean, I like to play Alice's stuff too, but the two local records, right? There's the swirly one, and then there's whatever that swirly thing is.
Yeah.
On the cover, the big swirly thing, and then there's Happy Nightmare Baby, right? Those are two separate ones.
Yeah, so they called that early recordings, which they were really gathering songs from singles and EPs.
Yeah. Okay, so it was an EP first, but anyway, that stuff's great. I think it's really cool. Kendra's wonderful. I love all of her stuff, and I think she got there doing all that stuff. I mean, the Mazzies is something different, and hope it's less my taste, although it's really cool and spooky and weird and cool. It's popular, obviously, in a weird way. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's more of a marketable thing, if that makes any sense. No. I don't know how to describe that. It's a production, right? It's a product, in a good way, right? And they've got a brand. It's a word we should probably stop using. This is a long time ago, so I think it's cool. It was a really cool brand, and it did really well. And that's great. Some of that stuff is really amazing. Some of the deep cuts are really, really cool. They remind me of David Roback here, going back to the guitar explorations before. I mean, it's good music. I think it's all really good. Some of the deep cuts are really being cool, and I mean, I like it. I like it. I've seen them. They're good. It's a really cool, trippy sound, and I like that.
I was fortunate enough to see Mazzy Star play almost a year to the day before David's passing. It was February 24th, I believe, of 2019 in Los Angeles at a Presbyterian church, and it was very darkly lit. I think it was only 6 rows from the front, and I still couldn't make out them on stage because it was so darkly lit. And I was trying to figure out if they were doing that as an artistic reason or if they were shy or what was going on. But it was an amazing performance. I just couldn't see much, but they sounded great.
That's very weird because I think either the night before or the night after they played in Oakland, and that was the last time I talked to them. I looked it up because they were in Oakland at the Fox Theater, and I think it would be the day after that or before they played in LA, because I knew they were either coming from or going to. No, I think they were going to, so that's probably the night before. And this is typical David. He calls me and asks me if I want to come down, and it's 6:30 at 8 o'clock. Well, I mean, I could. I kind of really wish that I had, but I didn't do it. And it's very cordial, and he was sweet, but I never talked to him again.
So how was that How was that last conversation with him?
It was fine. I just never talked to him.
Yeah.
He's a weird guy, and he kept to himself. But I still believe that we had a really, obviously, a truly profound connection. But I mean, I thought that, I kind of wish I'd forced the issue. I just feel kind of bad. I didn't know he was sick. He didn't want anybody to know. Because he's right. Because if he told me, I would have just showed up at his house.
Uh-huh.
That's not the way he wanted it. That's not the way he wanted it. So I love the guy.
Well, you guys made some amazing music together. You wrote some amazing songs, and we're really glad that we got to talk to you about him because he was a pretty mysterious guy to us. So getting your input was very helpful in getting a little bit of a better understanding of who David Roback was. So we really appreciate, Matt, you taking the time to tell us about your relationship with him and specifically with Rain Parade and what you guys did on that amazing, incredible debut album you guys did together.
Thanks a lot, you guys. We're really proud of it. We thought about it a lot, and we worked on it really hard. It's really cool to have been part of that, and I'm glad to have known the guy because I wouldn't have known you guys without him probably. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I'll take that. I'll take that compliment. But
all right. So you guys be safe, okay?
You do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. And when this all gets over with, hopefully you guys can make that trip to Los Angeles to record those songs. So we'd love it if those songs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how we do that exactly, but yeah. We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Stay healthy
Thank
and
you.
safe.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You know, here's another lesson I learned from Rain Parade. Never tell them I won't do something.
That's a sure way
they're going to tell you precisely that. No, you're not. There's the door. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's the way.
Will Glenn playing 3 violins. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm dead. And David Roback telling somebody, no, you're not playing on this. Bye. There's the door.
Sounds like that's a way to get yourself kicked out of the band quickly. Or a recording session, right?
But here's the thing that I find really interesting. I agree with you. David Roback is really kind of a mystery to us. And I'm glad that Matt kind of opened that door and let us see a little bit of, especially with those early days of Rain Parade. And, you know, it's just neat to hear someone reflecting on someone who enjoyed playing music and had a lot to contribute. And, you know, hearing how especially some of these early songs came together, you know, well, I had a verse, I had a guitar lick, and boom, you know, slowly things started coming together.
Yeah.
Those two Roback brothers are, you know, very talented, and their contributions, their imprint on that early Rain Parade music is so noticeable.
Yeah.
And
talk about creative genes in that family. I thought it was interesting too, where Matt said, where David came to him and said, "My brother plays music. Let's have him be in the band." And then he turns out to be the best songwriter in the band, as Matt says.
Well, you and I have talked about how Stephen Roback is really amazing as I mean, you and I gush a lot about him as a singer.
Yeah.
We love hearing his vocals, but you know, such a great songwriter too. Just and the other thing that strikes me about David Roback is, you know, there must have been a lot of musical notes going on in his head, because think of how different. Okay, you go from Rain Parade, and then he said, you know, Matt said Clay Allison, there were it was like a folkier turn, and you know, put Kendra and David together, I mean, poof,
yeah.
Mind blown. And then, you know, Matt did sound for them on that show in New York. It's like, I'm thinking, you know, all these connections. But then you move from Clay Allison to Opal to Mazzy Star. And Mazzy Star, you know, when you think of a starting point and then Mazzy Star, you're all, whew, they're so different. The projects are different. And, you know, there just must have been different sounds, different impulses kind of going through saying, okay, well, here's one, here's another one, here's another one.
Yeah. Yeah, the progression actually, it does make sense to me when I line them all up and I hear And reflecting back on what Matt says, with the acoustic, folkier side of Rain Parade,
Uh-huh.
so it sounded to me like that's something that David was interested in. And Matt even said that there was a conversation or two on an airplane trip or two where
Right.
Kendra was brought up as being a possible future bandmate from Rain Parade. Interesting. And then you have the Rainy Day compilation that comes out, very folky sounding for the most part, very acoustic. David and Kendra doing their thing. And then it gets into the early Clay Allison, early Opal period. And you have a lot of that folky kind of sound, and then it gets a little heavier as they move along. They get into Happy Nightmare Baby, and it's definitely more psych, a little bit heavier, a little bit more electric, and then and you always have there's always a mysterious side to me, musically speaking, as well as personalities. There's something mysterious about the music, and it comes across, and I think it's chords, I think it's progressions, but even with Happy Nightmare Baby, which is more psychedelic electric sound, there is that sound, and then you have like the reverb, and then Hope joins Opal after Kendra leaves, and then for a while it was Opal with Hope as the singer, and then it wasn't that big of a switch, I don't think. It makes sense to me. It's different. Yes, it's different. But it seems like it's part of the progression to me.
Mm.
And then I think once that sound of Mazzy Star developed, where it was more of the acoustic and the reverb and whatnot, they locked into a sound that just became Mazzy Star. And with their whole catalog, you're not going to find like dramatically different stuff coming from that band. It's like they locked into a sound, and that became what Mazzy Star was. It was that Mazzy Star sound. And it does seem like a whole progression of David's career and his style. But speaking to Matt, it's very educational.
Mm-hmm. I find it interesting that David was much more apt or willing or open to singing with Rain Parade, because then we just kind of see him move into a different arena, purely in charge of music versus vocal.
Right. Yeah.
And you and I were talking about in just kind of backtracking and looking for different sources, coming across an interview. It's rare to find an interview with him speaking, and I happen to locate one from Australia from 2018, and he and Hope are speaking with the host, and it's just informative, but it's a voice that you don't hear often.
No.
So it's like, it's interesting. It's interesting to hear, and it's another voice that's gone.
Yeah.
And that's tough.
I was also surprised. I don't know why I was surprised, but I was surprised to learn that Matt did not know that David was sick. In my mind, I kind of pictured that Matt would have known what was going on. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a surprise to me. And it tells a lot about the character of David, I think, being a very private person. And
think about what Matt said. He said, if I'd have known, I would have been at his house.
And David knew that.
Not what he wanted. Yeah. It's not what he wanted.
And David had to have known that about Matt.
And then in reading some of the articles after his passing, a lot of the people that were also close to him, like Sue Hobbs, didn't know. And, she, in one interview I read, she remarked, I saw him and I would note inside that he was thinner, but, it was kind of a moment of reflection and then moving on. And, she didn't know either. So it's just interesting to me. I think there's a lot more layers and dimensions to it, but, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more dimensions, and this was great. Really, really great for me to be able to listen to Matt talk about it. But I think maybe down the road we should see if we could find out a little bit more, get some different perspectives. We'll see.
Sure. Look, one thing is, I think, something that you and I can agree on. David Roback is part of this discussion, part of our discussion of the Paisley Underground, because he was there at the beginning. And then, when you look at his evolution, you just can't deny that this guy was a musical mind and, was a musical artist. And, it's just tough to know that it's a voice we're not going to hear.
Yeah.
Although, after his passing, some things that came to light were, there was an idea of a possible Rainy Day reissue, which is one of those really important albums, especially for fans of the Paisley Underground. But also there's a talk of a Opal reissue that Pat Thomas has been involved with.
Right.
And collaborated with David Roback and over a number of years. Do you know any more about that Opal reissue? I don't know more than what I read.
Yeah, I understand that there are some legal challenges, but
Got it.
there are still efforts to try to make that happen. And there was two reissues. I think would be both the early recordings as well as the Happy Nightmare Baby.
Right.
So,
and then what you were able to get your hands on, would you call that a bootleg?
Yeah, it's
an
unofficial release
or unofficial copy.
Yeah,
Got it.
It's widely available. So if you were to go on Discogs or eBay, there are copies floating around. But yeah, it's considered an unofficial release, so it's a bootleg.
But now I'm gonna go back and listen to that song. What you've done.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and because now I want to hear that tracing back to Rain Parade.
Right.
But I always like talking to Matt Piucci.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like class is in session and I get a good lesson.
Yeah.
And he's got stories.
He does.
And the little teeny tiny silver lining, there are new Rain Parade songs.
Yes.
And damn you, coronavirus,
I know.
for keeping us from hearing 2 new tracks that could have been recorded. But it's okay.
It's all right. Well, it'll happen eventually. Let's hope it will.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Big thanks to Matt Piucci.
Yes, thank you, Matt,
for sharing thoughts on David Roback. And all right, gente, arrubia.
Groove on, Paisley people. Stay healthy.
Yes.
Well, a lot of our recordings are actually very live. We like that. We don't really. It's not really our way. Our approach is not to. It's really to capture something about the moment rather than chasing a kind of idea of perfection. And so we like to have that spontaneity in what we do. There was some very interesting, very talented artists. Other bands, a band called Green on Red that was absolutely mind-blowing, and among I don't want to just mention one because there were really quite a few interesting artists and people just doing their own thing and exploring their own direction. I don't really. It was just a music scene, a lot of underground music. Well, Kendra was incredibly is an incredibly talented person, and her and I hope we were all friends back in those days, and I think that we don't. Massey Star went in its own direction, but certainly Kendra is one of the most amazing musicians that I've ever known. No, there aren't any rules at all whatsoever. We just sometimes we write on guitars, sometimes we write on piano or electric organ or bass guitar, different things. Just whatever happens. Well, we'd like to make albums that are incoherent almost as much as we would like to make albums that are coherent. I think that we don't really have a process that needs to be verbalized between the two of us. We just really basically do what we like, and that's been the way it's always been, and what turns us on, and what we feel emotionally connected to. That's what we like to do.
I heard that you said that you feel all alone. Did you think that they could understand when they told you go ahead? Is it in your head? Are you upside down? You drive around feeling sad. And I wish you everything I possessed. Do you understand? Are you feeling dead? Are you lost? Are you sad? Did I leave you alone? Do you think that I don't understand what it's like to feel all alone?
Shema Tustamani.